Welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week, we continue our series on Foggy Terrors with the 2005 remake of The Fog. This is episode, if you can believe it, episode 360. That means that in 5 episodes, you could listen to our show for a year and you would have one show a day to
Holy
listen to.
crap.
Wow.
Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, once again, the 2005 The Fog, we're going to be discussing it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
And a snappy dresser.
Indeed, I know. And finally, also in Denver, also a snappy dresser, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Not as snappy a dresser as Drew, though, but thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day, my darling, by the way.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And happy Super Bowl
okay.
Day.
Yep, it was that too. Yeah. It's funny because I was just tweeting like during the Super Bowl, hey guys, I was driving around and you could totally pull off a heist right now. This would be an ideal time to like go and do really anything because the streets are just.
Yeah, we've gone skiing on Super Bowl Sunday. Today we went to the grocery store during the Super Bowl. It's like just
Yes, it's true. All right. The Fog is a 2005 American supernatural horror film directed by Rupert Wainwright and starring Tom Welling, Selma Blair, and Maggie Grace. It is a remake of John Carpenter's 1980 film of the same name. It was produced by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Those are the co-producers, of course, of Halloween. And they co-wrote the original The Fog. The film tells the story of a strange fog that sweeps in over an island town off the coast of Oregon. It was changed to Oregon from California in the original, bringing with it the vengeful spirits of mariners who were murdered 134 years before. The town people find themselves trapped and fighting for their lives while discovering the truth of their dark history. That is The Fog 2005. So let's get our opening thoughts. We haven't started with Drew in a while, so let's go. Drew, Julia, Tony, and then I'll go. We'll just go into the discussion. Drew, what do we make of this? What do we make of this film?
So the first time I saw this movie was after I had come back on an overnight flight from Germany. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but I ended up going to see this movie after that. I was very jet lagged, so I didn't really remember a whole lot about it other than Selma Blair and Tom Welling being in it. So like I was actually in a state of mind where I feel like I could have given this movie a bit of a fair shake, and I think I did. That being said, this is pretty bad. Like it's I feel like most of the characters are miscast. The effects kind of have a weird unfinished quality. It's definitely guilty of a lot of early aughts horror films where they were trying to be as, I guess, quote unquote clean as possible to keep it with a PG-13 rating. So it's not particularly scary or shocking except in one place, which I will talk about. But it's it's funny. Tony made the remark about the last one seeming like a TV movie of the era. This movie has a TV movie quality too, especially because it's got Tom Welling in it. And I just feel like everybody's kind of miscast and underwritten, and it's just severely lacking in atmosphere. I just like everything that's cool about the first movie it's kind of weird that Carpenter and Deborah Hill were producers on this, because like it doesn't really, you would think that they would have attempted to keep it to have more of the atmosphere of the original, but this just doesn't have that. And no, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's pretty bad. And you know, especially watching it so closely to the original, it certainly doesn't do it any favors. So like if someone were to ask me like, oh, what did you think about the Fog remake, I would say just pass on it and watch the original again.
Right. Thank you very much. Julia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, agreed that it definitely suffers by comparison with the first one. There are some things. I mean, I personally prefer the character that the character of the hitchhiker being from the town and not being just some random that I prefer. But of course, I prefer Jamie Lee Curtis's performance. But there's some neat effects. I think there's some interesting ideas. With the ghosts, the fog effects are cool. A few of the things like that, some beautiful shots and everything. But yeah, I mean, the first one's just much better. It's much creepier. It's much more interesting. The performances are more interesting. So it's not my favorite. I think if I'd watched it without having seen the other one, I'd probably like it a little more, just because I wasn't just constantly going, "Well, that was better than the first one. Well, that was better." But I just, yeah, it's not. It doesn't have the kind of what's the staying power or whatever you want to call it that the first one has.
Well, that would be a word. I mean, because
Yeah,
clearly there are remakes
yeah,
that do have staying power, right? I mean,
yep,
obviously the thing has stayed with us.
yeah,
With it. John Carpenter's The Thing has stayed with us without, it just
mhm,
has. So, a remake can be good, but
yeah.
Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I this film so many just weird choices
Mm,
that they made that I get you don't want to do a shot for shot remake. That's not what you're doing when you're doing an adaptation or a remake. But I don't understand a lot of the choices that they made, and none of them were really scary. And it's funny that Drew mentioned it, and this is something I was thinking of that it's kind of ironic that a movie literally based on atmosphere is less atmospheric than the first one.
yeah.
I mean, the CG is okay, but it's weird. Like, working in that industry and knowing VFX people and stuff, I always hate to disparage people's hard work, but the CG effects just they aren't as scary as the kind of atmospheric stuff that's done in the first one.
Yeah.
And that's
The
you know
dummies
that's
with
that's
glowing
another.
eyes, basically,
Yeah, it's
that were in
so
the original
weird
one.
to think about, like, the effects they're going for and the ghosts and everything. That's cool, but because of how it's told and implemented, it's never really it doesn't have the same impact, which is
Mm,
odd because of how, gritty and, low budget a lot of the stuff was in the first one.
hmm
But you see it but it fits that way. Also the cleanest the cleanest ocean
hmm
water ever for all of it. Like it's because you film it and you film it in a tank and whatever. I mean, maybe they had some, but like it was always, I don't know. And I found that it has a very slasher movie
mm.
aesthetic to the cast. The way that
Yes.
they play out, like they're the annoying characters in a slasher movie that are not the same. And again, by contrast, I mean, we're sadly, like I really tried to kind of put myself like, Carpenter's Carpenter. That cast was amazing. I got to think of this as a separate thing, but it's so hard. By no means is the original perfect, but this one also, to me, it has a flavor. Drew said it right in the like early aughts. I actually thought like late 90s.
hmm
It's filmed, and I don't want to disparage. This isn't meant as disparaging, but merely as how I saw it.
Yeah.
It looks like how I remember stuff like I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Yeah. All that post-Scream
and
stuff, right?
the look and feel, the how it's filmed, how it
hmm
looks, how the beats are, the cinematography, and just the character, the way that all is, just reminded me of
The
that
difference
there were a bunch of those once that got kind of going,
I
Yeah.
and
don't
it
think you're wrong. I do think that this like seems like it's like a cousin of like disturbing behavior or something like that.
right.
hmm
But the difference between those late 90s Scream knockoffs is that those were still rated R. This has like a
Yeah.
Oh no,
sanitized
I feel you,
quality.
but when you look at that was the other thing that I just
Can
it
you
looks
help me
like
with
all of those
something?
movies, and it felt strange to me to have that kind of cleanliness and
Yes.
vibe. But
What
yeah, it
is the
wasn't. This movie doesn't. I mean, I don't particularly feel like I ever need to rewatch it. But yeah, I
yeah,
like Selma Blair. I like there's good like there's good actors in here that I like.
yeah.
But it does not gel in the same way as the original by any stretch for me.
I want to ask a little bit about the thing about that 90s look, because I want to dig into that. And I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know if any of you have studied this particular thing, but there's a sort of an amber glow to movies of this era, like everything, from like the 90s remakes of like Carrie and all that stuff. There's always this sort of this well, amber glow is the best way that I can put it. Everything just feels very slick, and
Mhm.
there's a coloring to it that has I might say a yellow cast. And this looks like that. This looks like that remake of Carrie that we saw. That was not bad. The Carrie remake was okay. It was fine. But
Although, for what
yeah.
it's worth, that's from 2013. Really, is it that recent?
Well, there was also a TV Carrie remake. That
Yeah, and there's also the Rage Carry 2. So
Right. And oh, the Rage Carry 2, that also has that feel that looks like I Know What You Did Last Summer. There was the other thing is, if you look at if you take the young people of Halloween, and what are they doing? They're kind of like they're smoking a little dope, they're having sex with their boyfriends, but basically they're a bunch of just ordinary kids in blue jeans. There's a kind of ultra MTV'd I
Yeah, everybody is that like, hey, I'm this character. Oh,
yeah,
by the way, I'm the
there's a party
sidekick
hardy kind of
guy
feel that
that
just feels gross and fake to the
yeah.
kids in this.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I keyed off of. And there was a lot of kind of knockoffy kind of movies that had that. And that's again usually like in a slasher film, you almost kind of go, "Oh, well, I'm supposed to they're supposed to
Because
get it."
that guy's kind of get a meat cleaver through his head. Yeah, exactly.
But coming from the difference where they in this one they have like let's go out and party on this boat,
Right.
whereas in the original it feels more poignant because people are worried about
Yes,
their
they're adults
relatives
and they're
that
working on a boat. Whereas in this case, it's a couple douchebags, and these girls are trying to impress, and they are taking off. They're stripping down into their bathing suits, and they're partying to their lame
That scene was
techno
so annoying. I
music.
hated that scene so much.
Oh,
that's
It was just so
not
silly. It was like so pointless to have that relationship with these guys. They're not even on dates with them. They're just like
so in the
the
background,
girls
let
are
me
like on the
ask.
boat and the guys are working, and it's just so weird.
Well,
I
and
don't know.
let me ask: Are they? And the script sort of clumsily explains that what's going on is that the one guy who works with Tom Welling has taken these girls on this boat with Tom Welling's boat. So maybe this is a charter of some kind or whatever. But is this a commentary on how there's less independent fishing going on in 2005 than the
I think
1970s? And so
I think a comment is that it's a commentary on anything but hey, here's the beats for
Pretty
a
girls.
movie. Like here's the
to
beats for a
me,
horror movie is not
to
I don't know.
to me,
okay,
it
well,
seemed like it was written almost to be a lampoon of Girls Gone Wild, but then
oh yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
when this got dialed back to
PG-13.
PG-13, they had to kind of hack it down a little bit. So now it's just this confusing thing
Well,
that
speaking of that
happens, which is a
PG-13,
lot of problems.
there's a sex scene in a shower that is literally the most wasted 3 minutes of
Ugh,
screen
it's
I've
so
ever.
boring. It's so boring. The music is the worst music they could have picked. It's like the most unsexy
Julia
sex
called it
scene.
yoga music. That it was like
It's like yeah, this would be perfect music to like in a spa, but it's not
to
for
get your hot
no.
stones on your
Yeah,
back or
exactly.
whatever.
I'm like,
Yes.
no, this is not. Yeah, I think of meditation music is what I said. But anyway,
Hated
um,
everything. I hated everything about the relationship between the two main characters. I think it's
Oh yeah.
dumb that he is sleeping or has slept with the Selma character, but they don't really do anything with that.
Yep.
exactly.
She's the chairwoman's daughter, but they don't really do anything with that. She's also supposed to be the Jamie Lee Curtis thing, that character, but that also only really seems like they did that so they can't just have a random hookup in their movie. They
Yeah.
everybody
Do
like
you think that's what it is? It's a
Yes, no,
moralism
absolutely.
thing?
I
That's
think
why.
it's
Yes,
I
that's
think
absolutely
yeah, it's
why.
changing social mores, I'm
100%.
sure.
Oh my goodness,
But
that's a,
100%.
Yeah,
the
I
I
would go with
other
that.
I didn't understand that. That's
the
interesting.
other thing the other
Wow.
thing though is that she's also a ghost for some reason.
Yeah, that,
Yes.
Like, wait, what?
She's like the reincarnated bride of the captain or something.
that
So
again, that's why I
weird.
go like there's so many choices. They
A
also
lot
introduce, like,
of what the fuck in this movie.
there's like
Absolutely.
the ghost can make people zombies briefly. There's just all this stuff that's
You
just
know,
like, hey, by the way, if you haven't forgotten in the last few minutes, this is a horror movie. So here's some things. And I just, like I said, it's so, I really try to distance myself from saying, I'm going to approach this as a new thing.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, another reason why a lot of those like knockoff, very, very similar movies that
Yeah.
this has the look and feel of. I quit watching them then, and I don't watch many of them, because you can go on Tubi right now, and if that's your bag, and again, if that is, that's cool. No judgment here.
Maybe out of
For me,
pure nostalgia. Maybe you just
for
want to
me,
like look at some
yeah,
movies from 2000 because that was a fun time
it's
for you. I can get it.
cool in the gang if that's your deal. But I
There's
quickly was like,
better
I'm done with, I have other choices, and time is limited.
there's better movies from that time period though. Like, I
Of
can
course.
understand if you were like a kid during that time period and you have nostalgia for it, but I would be very surprised if anybody is like, it's what I was saying last week, Jason, like, people don't really talk about this movie, and I think it's just because it's like, it's not only bad, it's quite forgettable. Like,
Yeah.
it's bad in a very,
That's what I'm
like,
saying. It has no staying power.
yeah, like the original has these like amazing visuals in it, like the captain. It's also got rules that I mean, there's some ambiguity, but the creatures have like, you understand what the creatures can and cannot do. The problem with this movie is that seems to change from scene to scene, and I'm
Yep.
sorry, that's just lazy writing.
Well, even if I wasn't totally clear on the rules in either of these movies, I think that the first one benefits from setting up this concept. There's something in the fog. The fog is carrying spooky ghosts. That's a cool idea. This movie doesn't add anything to that, so there's no reason for us to hold on to it. The remake
But
of The
it
Thing,
does look good. That part looks good. Like the ship looks great. The fog looks really good.
true.
The
Fair.
ghosts look cool when they're in the shadow of like they're just kind of all these
Yeah.
shadows. They look great there.
But it's just
All
like
that's
how the 2000-ish 2000 or so remake of Salem's Lot doesn't manage to. It might be well made, but it doesn't bring anything new to the story, such that you have any reason in your head to get rid of preferring the 1970s version.
It's interesting too, because in this one they also try to add a little bit more depth to the burning of the ships and all of that
Yes.
stuff.
I
But
thought
then,
that was like weirdly more gruesome than the first one. Like, funny, it's
Yes.
the one thing they don't really
it was so horrific.
but
All the people
yeah.
getting burned alive. Horrific.
Well,
It's way
it's
more horrific. Yes.
it's also like, because like in the original, they trick them into crashing on the rocks, which is terrible, don't get me wrong, but we don't see it, and it's not as visceral as like these guys actually getting onto a ship full of sick people, robbing them blind, locking them into their ship, and setting it on fire.
Yeah, that's it's a crazy murder. I mean, and yeah.
Well, it
So
does make you justify. It does justify why they're killing everybody.
right.
I feel like
But
I'd be
also,
pissed too.
but because of that, like, it's weird because it is so visceral, but it doesn't, because of how loose everything else seems to be on what they can and can't do and how that's all working out. We didn't need that. Now, obviously they felt we needed it because in the end we have a weird ghost Dracula thing going on, everlasting love, whatever that is. But like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because you didn't need any of that really in the original, and here we have it expanded, but it doesn't tie back in enough other than like, here's some cursed trinkets.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, and that's the other thing. Is it all ghosts, or it's also some cursed trinkets that they find? Here's some things like
That's right.
uh,
Those are some
it,
bits that are just being these are bits and
it just feels like I
moments,
said, it just
beats.
who know, and
Unnecessary.
it's hard to get things developed. So who the hell knows what
Yeah,
notes were passed on and everything? But we can only judge the final product because we're the people watching
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
And so that's frustrating sometimes. Like you might talk to somebody at a bar like who made this and go, "Oh yeah, well, we were told to do this and this is the time and whatever." But
Yeah.
the way that things move along, it just feels like, oh, by the way, here's some more horror things. Oh, well, we need the shower scene because we've got, attractive young CW style
Oh, we want PG-13, so
stars.
don't
And
show any nipples or anything. Don't
right,
like show any. Don't have any
right.
like orgasmic sounds or
And don't use
anything.
sexy
Just
music.
right.
And
Just sort of. Yes.
Also, by the way,
Um,
I'm pretty sure, like at one point, Selma Blair goes, "Oh, I can't curse." Wait, it's my radio station. I can't curse. I think the FCC says maybe not on that. If I
I
remember
know, right?
correctly, I don't think you can just have a station, and if somebody complained, I think you'd at least get fined.
No, that's
Selma
ridiculous.
Blair seems like the only person though who is legitimately trying in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
movie. I just think she's trying to miscast. Like I don't think
Well, it
she.
was supposed to be Julia Stiles, and then Julia Stiles ended up having to drop out.
Huh?
So then they cast her. But
Julia
yeah.
Stiles.
I don't
I
know
mean,
that I think
Mhm.
Julia Stiles will be any better, but like
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
they
Selma
have
Blair's
Summer
doing everything
Blair.
she can to.
Yeah.
I don't think she. I mean, I don't see
She's
how. Like,
fine.
oh, well,
It's
that
just
would have made a difference.
kind of against type for her because Selma Blair is like she's got this haircut like Nina Hartley and she's like wearing the rocker t-shirts all the time and everything. But there's just something so like inherently professional and clean cut about Selma Blair I don't know. I agree that she's always good. So she's easily the most believable person in the whole movie.
I
But
think the
nevertheless,
difference though
yeah.
is like she doesn't have for somebody that's supposed to be a radio DJ, like her voice is a little flat. Like the thing about Adrienne
Yeah.
Barbeau is she has like an amazing speaking voice. And
Well, yes, again with the suffering by comparison. I'm sure it wouldn't have been distracting if you weren't like, oh, wow, that's way different than Adrienne Barbeau.
yeah.
Because she's just some girl on the radio, whatever.
Well,
But you
and
have this
Adrienne
standard now.
Barbeau, I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm
Go.
just saying the bar is set. Yeah.
I mean, Adrienne Barbeau seemed like a tough woman who had probably lived hard for a long time, and Selma Blair does not give me that impression.
No, we were actually surprised she was old enough to have a kid that age, but we looked up her age and she would have had him like at 20 something.
which is
So I
totally
was like, yeah,
sure, why not?
she looks younger than she is.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
it's funny. Like I talked about this last week, as far as like the casting, like using Tom Welling
hmm.
as in the Tom Atkins role. Like it's kind of exactly what I was talking about, and in no way is Tom Welling believable as a sailor. Like he's just not. Like I guess I would get why like he is
It's an excellent
technically
point.
yeah
Also,
he's
we end up with stupid jokes like his partner cutting up fish and pulls the guts out and goes, "Hey, you want sushi?" Like
I don't understand
that's
what's
not
going on
even
in any of
like
this.
that's
That's
not
not what
even the thing.
sushi
Like
is.
that's not
Yes.
sushi. Like all.
And it's true that like
Ah,
I don't know if Tom Welling drinks, but like Tom Atkins looks like a guy who drinks in the movie The Fog. He has the rosy cheeks and the rosy nose of somebody who is probably drinking a lot. He fits into this sort of rode hard and put away wet feel of this working class town in ways that Welling doesn't. Bless his heart. Maybe he's a really hard living guy and he just looks extraordinarily clean cut. But boy, does he look clean cut.
well and I mean, not for nothing, he is a guy that's mostly known for playing Clark Kent, but
True.
like I
well,
I
That's true.
I just we keep going back to the pales by comparison, but like
Yes.
he's exactly what I'm saying is they don't cast guys like Tom Atkins anymore. And
right.
you
Mm.
know like, and I'm not, cute, what, kudos for them for making the age gap not, like that was the one thing I did say is like the age
Right.
gap between Tom
Yeah.
Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis is extremely noticeable.
It's a good point. Yeah.
But that being said, everything else about like the interplay between those two characters is better in the first movie.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I actually didn't have I thought, yeah, they seemed like a couple of perfectly fine young people that
But they're
I
not
was
really
fine.
perfect
You know.
fine. He's apparently cheated on her a bunch.
No,
Yeah,
I
that-
mean, they just fit together well.
But
all,
they
is all I'm
don't.
saying.
That just it really
don't
bothers
really.
me. Yeah, it bothers to me also that they throw that out there and don't do anything with it. Like, do you think that there was like did scenes or something like that's
knows?
just, it's a strange story arc point to even include because you could take it out of the movie and it literally nothing about the movie would change.
Yeah, and why is it better that she, other than the fact I guess we're supposed to go, wow, well, she never really fit in with this town because she was actually a ghost who was destined.
Ghost.
I did like
But-
that the script is having her doing the research. That was kind of neat,
But
They have-
but the thing is, like, it doesn't make his character better. It makes him kind of a jackass, and it also doesn't solidify anything other than oh, he's cheated on her. Oh, are they like none of it makes you want to feel better about it. Like it's all just like, whoa, that's kind of skeezy.
So
and, for a clean cut skeezy guy, like, okay, I guess is that supposed to be why? Like, oh well, we've decided to go with this aesthetic, and here are the people we're going to hire, and they have a certain look and feel because this is the movie we're making, and they decided that of all things was going to make him a little bit grittier, but it doesn't really. And then also, like, Father Malone, his whole character now is just like drunk guy who
No, that was super weird
mutters
too.
things.
Well, and the role of the church is different. Like I love the
Yeah.
role of the church, and the other one being like, let's all come here, and it's a big, sturdy old church, and that's where the stuff is behind the wall. And now it's like this, just kind of an ordinary church. It's not really that important. Nothing is hidden there. Like the thing was that the journal was
Right.
actually hidden in a boathouse. By the way, I got it wrong. It was Julia Stiles was supposed to play Elizabeth, not Stevie. So I don't know. I think I said it wrong.
No,
So
but
I
I
just
understood that.
correct
Oh yeah, no, you're right. You did say.
Yeah,
Stevie.
I just wanted to correct that
Okay.
that mistake. Yeah. So Selma Blair was always the first choice for Stevie.
Well, I mean, good for Selma Blair, I guess. I mean, it's.
But there's
yeah.
no, the kind of heaviness of Malone's guilt and the
Yeah.
feeling of the town is in this one. He's just relegated to wandering. Like they could have
He's
just
too drunk,
made him
too.
a shabby. They just could have made him like a shabby guy who preaches on the corner. It would have been the
Yeah.
same thing. But they don't do that. They
Yeah.
don't do either. He could have just been like, the end is nigh. Oh my gosh! And
The-
but then they just had to wander around being drunk and mumbling
Malone in
with
the
his
original.
with his clean priest outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Malone in the original isn't much of a part, as Jason pointed out. It's just what like they didn't hire an actor that had an gravitas for this character. Like they needed, of course, they sort of also robbed him of having the ending of the movie. Like he's killed in this like weirdly, like he's stabbed by Phantom Glass that's like weirdly bloodless. Like, and I'm not saying it needed to be like Evil Dead 2 or anything like that. There should have been some blood so it wasn't like completely like, I don't know. I've never been stabbed by Phantom Glass, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn. But
Yeah,
that took me out of the movie.
I agree that I felt like it was a really gory scene with no blood. By the way, another random thing casting. I'm sorry, I'm just reading the casting choices. Fergie was actually attached to play Stevie before a last minute. Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas.
Sure.
Before a last minute conflict prevented her contract from closing. They had wanted Selma Blair first, but they had signed Fergie because they were going to use. Well, anyway, it's just various conflicts having to do with the.
That would have
people who were
been
in
so
the boss.
weird.
Yeah. Anyway, but
Oh,
it's just
boy.
that was bizarre.
I
But
don't know
yes,
if she's any as an actor though. I
I've no idea. Literally no idea.
I could see that kind of working.
What I'm
just
thinking about
looking-
is how this is. So we've said several times kind of looks like a TV movie. And here's the funny thing: we've all seen some great TV movies. You
Yeah.
know, Salem's Lot is a TV movie. I mean, it's a miniseries, but I mean, like I've got a whole YouTube channel that I mentioned to you guys that's all really spooky TV movies. So in a way, what we mean is this looks like a TV movie that also isn't very good because
See. I don't think it
it's
looks like a TV movie to me. I think it looks like straight to
like an era
video.
2005 period movie,
Yeah,
I
it
guess.
doesn't look
The
especially
equivalent.
TV.
I don't know. I think this could have been like a late 90s movie of the week, like maybe on the WB or something. But
Hmm.
I think you kind of nailed it. It looks, even though it's from 5 years past that heyday of those kind of movies, like I think it does look a lot like a Scream knockoff. Like,
So weird. It's so weird that it does that, but not a slasher. That's the other is the bloodlessness of it. That so many of the like in the previous one we don't see the babysitter get slashed, right? We just see the door open and zombie sailors grab her and drag her into the fog. That's scary. Here, a zombie sailor reaches through the garbage disposal and turns her into charcoal. Not as scary. It just
Yeah,
didn't.
and
It
then
had
that character was just kind of not like the fact that she's super addicted to whatever it was, Jeopardy or whatever show she was
Jeopardy.
watching,
Yeah,
and she was just like so absent, like
yeah.
vacant. You know what I mean? I didn't
In
like how
in
that
the
character was designed.
Yeah, because previously, again, it's
It's
not
almost
probably fair.
inescapable, right? You
It's
can't.
not
It's
It's
fair
not.
to
It
the
isn't very right.
filmmakers to try to, but it's called The Fog, so I guess
Yeah, they're
that's
remaking the
the.
movie.
But in the original, she's like your Meemaw,
right.
Right. When
and in
she
this
cares
one,
and she's scared, she's worried, like she actually is aware of the fact that there's a risk. Whereas this woman's just
right,
like la la la, there's nothing. When she's over by the window, you expect something to happen and nothing happens there. And then at the sink again, exactly what Drew was saying about the rules changing left and right. Or I think was it Drew or Tony that said that? I think it was Drew.
I
it was
said
true.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but yeah, so this idea that like suddenly now they can reach up through a drain, that wasn't a thing that we
And
had seen
turn you
before,
into
and turn you
weird
into it.
leopard charcoal,
Yeah.
like it's this
Yeah,
strange ghost
all of
leopard
The
that.
thing.
idea that the people in the town are starting to get leprosy is cool. I wish they had
That's kind
done
of
more with
interesting.
it.
Agreed.
Mm,
Yeah,
Mm.
agreed.
Yeah, I
that's
like
true.
that. The other thing I did like, and it again, it was kind of incongruous. The older, scavenger sailor guy when he's like pulling out the rope and it's attached, and that whole scene on the beach
Hmm.
is really cool. It's filmed really interestingly, and
It's
that the
cool.
struggle is, but it doesn't. Again, like I don't know if it fits in this movie,
Well, and I feel
but
like
it
no,
was done
actually, I
really
think
well.
it would have been cooler if I feel like it went on too long with the rope because I think he would have let go. Like he would have been like,
Mm-mm.
this has gotten. So I think it would have been way cooler if he had started pulling the rope up and the fog bank hits right then, and you see the sailors, the old ship. I
Right.
think that would have like it suddenly it's attached to the old ship.
Yes,
But the
that
way it
that'd be
just
funny
kept
if he
going, where he
pulled
was
the
kind
ship
of being
in. Yeah.
like he was getting dragged under by the rope, it just felt like it wasn't really believable. The kid takes way too long. I mean, and that makes sense because, of course, sometimes you're just going, "What the hell am I looking at?" Before you
Right.
realize, "Oh, I should run now." But he takes like way too long to get freaked out and run
Right.
away. But yeah, it's a neat effect. The idea that and also the fact that that table and chairs just pops up. That was kind of cool and creepy.
All of
There was some neat
that
creepy
era,
things.
that
Yeah.
area of the film was like, okay, this is kind of interesting and neat, and I like this vibe,
Hmm.
but that's not, none of that carries over into the rest of it, which is weird to me. Like I finally
There
kind of latched
was
onto something, and it just kind of didn't feel it. That part it fits in with the storyline, but visually, thematically, and kind of suspense wise, it felt like, okay, well now there's this section.
one
Yeah.
special effect that I thought was cool in the
Okay.
movie where towards the end where the head ghost has the mayor of the town on the ground, and it's like he's walking towards him and he's like kicking but it's not connecting, but the guy's still rolling, and it's like a simple
Yeah, that was a
effect,
strange. Yes.
but
I love
it looked cool.
yeah, it looks cool. It's
Yeah.
obviously just they just ran it backwards. You know, like
Yeah.
he's tumbling forward and walking forward, and they're running it backwards. But it looks great because it's just anytime they do that where they run the film backwards like that, it always looks so eerie because it doesn't feel like the human body should be able to do that, and of course it can't because it's backwards.
And
But
I
that was a neat effect.
I just wish there was more like interesting, like I'm not again pales in comparison to the original, but there's nothing as unique as like the very end where the ghost captain grabs hold of the big, golden cross. Like that's a really amazing
Right.
visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And the it just
Oh, by the way, the roads in the fog are super dangerous because you can get hit by a Mack truck who doesn't stop
Yeah,
or
man.
even care, and then there can also just be a boat.
How did
in the
that
middle of
Mack
the-
truck get onto that island?
I don't know about that one. I will say, running into a boat trailer, I have done that, and that's easy. That one, you can
But there was just a
absolutely-
boat in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
After, like, again, like, why is there all of a sudden
Right, and in real life, you need to do a little bit of work to set that up.
danger
I mean,
as a
yeah,
theme?
like at least, at the very least, you need like 10 seconds or less of the guy whose boat trailer it is running from the fog, and he failed to like secure the boat trailer, and it rolled down of his front yard and into the highway, which again happens, right?
I just
But-
think that this movie had a lot of stuff cut out of it. Like it's got
very
that
possible,
feel. It's
yeah.
got that feeling to it. The look
Or
of
if you were, or you could have it not be a Mack truck, have it just be a big truck carrying a boat. When all that happens, the boat comes loose, and when they're coming to try to look for people and save her, oh no, that's also the boat we just saw. But
Tony
we get none of
the
that.
movie.
Like, we
Yeah.
get none of that, and it's just like, oh no, a huge truck just knocked a car off the road, didn't stop, didn't call, nope, nothing. Just like, that's weird. I guess I just destroyed a car. And
Okay,
then
explain
a
something
few
to
minutes
me.
later, you get like, oh no, there's a boat in the middle of the road. That's caused this wreck, and now there's fire, and we should film that because that's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it does seem to be just, this sounds like it'll look cool. Let's put this chairs and dining table on the beach because, which looks for all the world like a, a police video or something. Man, this is so weird and random and strange. 2005 this is. Okay. Forgive me. I'm looking at a list of other horror movies that came out at this time. And so, like, Saw 2 came out that year. The Amityville Horror remake with Ryan Reynolds came out that year. So, is this a period of lots of remakes? Is that what's going on?
Well, that
Forgive
was
me for not
there was
remembering.
the early aughts was remake. Like people talk about remake now, but like that's when the Michael Bay Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was all the remakes of Japanese horror films. Like
Mhm.
Hollywood went absolutely nuts for and some of them were legitimately fun movies. Like I think the My Bloody Valentine remake is a hoot. I think the one they did of Black Christmas around that same time is suitably bonkers. Like
I really
but-
admire how many horror movies you watch because that's I missed this whole period. I don't know what I was doing.
I think I saw that. I saw one of those at least in 3D as well. I guess was it My Bloody
Yeah,
Valentine
like-
was in 3D, right?
Oh yeah, and it was some of the best 3D I think I've ever seen. But like yeah, there was like a whole era, and I think the Nightmare on Elm Street remake
Well-
kind of killed that off.
And it
for a
had that
while.
aesthetic though too, because what you see is a lot of hey, let's get more young people back in theaters to see these movies. They
Mhm.
may or may not remember the originals, but we're going to use that IP, and let's
Yes.
get other attractive young people that they've seen in these roles as well.
Yes.
And that was the thing, and that's fine. Hey, if it sells, whatever.
I'd go so far
Yeah.
as even Tony to say if it's good, you'll remember it. The great thing is if it's bad, it slips beneath the waves, and
Right.
other than
But the
podcasts like our own,
aesthetic-
nobody remembers.
But the idea, the thrust of all of that was these are remakes for this generation who's coming to the movies regularly. Let's make that, and again, that's commerce. Like I can't, it's not like this wasn't like, in the 50s, you had plenty of times where like, hey, let's get this,
Oh yeah.
let's get this hot,
If somebody gave me
pop
money and
star.
said rewrite 13 Frightened Girls for next summer, I'd be like, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I would
Well,
I would
that
do it in
that
a heartbeat.
that's kind of, I mean, the thing. It wasn't just well-known properties they were doing. They were doing like, because I mean, the Fog doesn't have, I feel like, the same visibility. Even like horror
Right.
movie fans like it, but I don't think it's
Mhm.
well known outside of hardcore horror junkies.
No,
But
you're right. There was a
this,
House of Wax remake in that year in
yeah,
Yep.
2005.
Yep.
yeah, the one with Paris Hilton, and they
But Hostel also came out in 2005. Like that's an
yeah.
interesting year. If you've got like true indoor bull stuff like a remake of House of Wax and Hostel. That's a really
The
interesting year.
remake of House of Wax, and I say it very loosely because it has very little to do with the Vincent Price film, is way better than this. Like
That's good to know. Maybe I'll watch it this week. Who
it's
knows?
it's a slasher. It's got more in common with Tourist Trap than it
Mhm.
does with House of Wax. But again, they were just kind of mining the name because they're like, oh, people kind of remember that House of Wax was
Is a thing that exists.
Yeah,
Yes.
and this the Hills Have Eyes remake was pretty good. Like I think I'm not anti remake. I just want there to be some kind of imagination to it. And this is just so bland. Like
Well,
it's
I mean, I'll even
ugh.
go so far as to say that sometimes everybody involved can be trying their best and doing everything, but you're making choices, and sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want. I mean, because think about it, they're making all these choices. They're going like, as Tony mentioned, choices, right? Like instead of having the mysteries hidden in the wall of the church, let's have them hidden in the sort of the water underneath the boathouse, the little bricks there. Like, who knows why? Just like it's going to be a cool set piece to have her, but in the end, does it matter to us? Not really, and so it doesn't add up to very much, and that's kind of a shame, I guess. I also think that somehow the lighthouse is not as exciting. The one that Linda Blair, Selma Blair's lighthouse is not nearly as exciting as Adrienne Barbeau's lighthouse.
Well, and they
Um,
cut out that entire awesome sequence of her on the roof
yeah,
of
yes,
the
Well,
yeah,
Well,
none of that would
yeah,
make
well,
sense
and they
now.
have her. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of how of the stuff that happens there is moved, or removed. The thing with the guy at the weather place or whatever
yeah. The
is
Weatherman,
really
yeah,
is a really yeah, but at the weather station or whatever you call it is really horrific. This the fire, like him being on fire and just being like, there's a lot of people being burned alive in this
Yeah, but
film. It's kind of
it's,
disturbing.
again, those are choices because instead
Yeah,
we get those two who kind of have a flirty thing going on,
yeah,
yeah,
and but in the original you get a better sequence of
hmm yeah,
our main characters going to solve the problem of there's no power in the town,
right.
mhm,
and that's a big thing, and that's how they bond, and all of that. And here we get people, instead the choice is made to have them be totally separate,
Yeah.
and then
yeah,
just have her go, oh, help my friend and also help my son, and just
Well, and
let
then,
me
oh,
yell at everybody.
help my son, and so then you get what's his name from Smallville? What's his name again? The
Tom
Wellville,
Welling.
Tom
Welling,
Welling.
sorry,
Tom
yes,
Welling. He goes, Elizabeth, come with me. We got to go save Stevie's son. And there's a cop standing there.
yes,
And I'm like, maybe clue him in. How about she just said the weatherman was killed? Maybe you should let the cop know that. Like just any little bit of information that might kind of get him going in a direction would be good.
yeah.
I just thought that was the weirdest choice. Speaking of choices.
Oh my
All the
goodness.
cops, what we don't know is all the cops had ran into boats in the road throughout the town. Insidious boat road hazards were set
Yes.
up all over the town, and all of the cops have been taken out by running into boats or 18-wheelers.
Oh my god.
Um,
So,
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to mention here. I want to talk about the good stuff. The scene of the straight up murder on the boat, even if it's a big change and it takes away the sort of Daphne du Maurier historical notion about causing a ship to crash. It's a really scary scene. It's well done.
Hmm. Yeah.
I liked some of the CG ghosts.
I
Uh,
did too. I actually thought the ghost
I
effects were pretty
I
cool.
think the idea behind them is solid, and in fact, that's what they did in Crimson Peak and the 2016 Ghostbusters. And I think it looks a lot better there because what they did is they had basically somebody made up in zombie makeup, and then they went and CG'd over them to make them a ghost.
mm,
And it's, I don't know, just here it kind of has like this incomplete, and maybe it's just that the technology wasn't
Well, it's
quite
just, I
there.
mean, a lot of that's technology and time and
mhm,
budget. So you hire, I mean, I will say, as someone again who deals with this stuff, like I try not to blame it too much because I know, kind of what goes into it, and
mhm,
budgets affect that. But again, what I always come back to is they've decided to do this in CG. There's plenty of stuff that wasn't done in CG. Like you
yeah,
spend your budget, so you decide like we need this scene. Well, do you need this scene? Like, do you
yeah,
you get the choice again? All these choices, you get all these choices. Sometimes, yes. The idea is that a producer says, I'm not going to finish this unless we have. Here's some beats. Here's some notes. I have notes, and those
yeah.
notes are you're gonna put some. We have a VFX company. You're gonna put some CG ghosts in, and this is gonna be it. But to me, it's always weird when, if you do have the choice that you would use, maybe you're just enamored with the technology, but
Mm,
when you see it done practically, and there's ways to do that, but also, again, if you're going for this aesthetic and this is what makes money. This is what you're being told makes money. This is the commerce side of things. The CG part of that
yeah.
also is bundled into that aesthetic and into those choices. So
Mhm,
it's hard to separate that all out. But the one that I always go back to still is seeing a really pristine copy, a print, I mean, of Faust from the very one of the very first like movies
yes.
we have,
Yeah.
and the demon over the city, the village in that. And again, this is somebody who's the Spielberg of their time making Faust, right?
Yeah.
But 100 years plus later, when I
Yeah.
see something that doesn't look quite as effective as that, and I've been just as guilty. I'm not saying I'm the master VFX artist, or I've done plenty of stuff where I'm like, oh, I guess that's not as, it
Yeah.
doesn't look quite as good. So I'm always puzzled that this so far into another century ahead, we occasionally get effects that just aren't as good as
Yeah.
that, and I'm it's so bizarre to me. And again, there's many reasons why, but that's always struck me as just like, wow, huh? Why is that? Why, how do we reach here when that's no longer that's so effective, and
I
dated technology doesn't work as well?
let me take a guess at something, and we'll see if this sounds remotely right. But I remember our older child, Sophia, talking about how she was kind of okay with like miniatures or whatever, because she was like, I know what this effect is supposed to be. I know what the story is telling me, so it's okay. And I believe it's possible that with practical effects, people are more inclined to use the part of their brain that says this is suggestive of a thing, as opposed to being a thing
Mhm.
that I don't
No,
believe.
it is the kind of a different version of Uncanny Valley. Faust being
Yeah.
1926, by the way.
Okay.
I knew about there, but
So 4 years short of 100 years, that they're going to make it in 4 years. That's amazing. But
But
yeah.
I hate that. But that's one thing that struck me, like seeing it new, because when you see it as grainy
Hmm.
as fourth generation, maybe on video, it didn't have the same impact. But seeing it a newly struck
Hmm.
version or a really pristine version, and seeing that on this big screen, and thinking of everything I've seen created in CG, and there's some really great stuff, but
Yeah.
it always, when you see something that's not as good, you're like, wow, in 100 years we haven't surpassed that in some cases. And I guess it's all about choices and skill and time. The
Yeah.
the time money triangle, time money speed triangle always factors into that, regardless.
I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is the deal that we will forgive forever, the special effects in Wizard of Oz, because they're plastic, and so we kind of feel like it's on a stage, and we go. I'm just wondering, what are the rules? Like, why are there some effects we look at and we go, that doesn't look real, but I am emotionally moved by it because I'm here and I'm buying that as telling me the story. Whereas others we go, that doesn't look real, and it's actually turning me off. I'm not
Well,
interested.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it just depends.
with the exception of special effects that I think are sort of seamless.
Yeah, Ugly Betty, when it was on the air, they were one of the examples people were showing where, they often had conversations between the characters out on the street, at a bus stop with people walking, and the entire city is
Right.
CGI. It's all fake,
Well, this is
and
yeah. I
but
mean
you believe
that
it.
goes. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I
No,
mean
yeah, that's
that
it.
people don't understand how much CG, just the seamless stuff, is
Yeah,
everywhere now. And again,
yeah.
I hope that when we have these discussions, I know I probably beat a dead horse by now, but I'm not snobby about this. But I'm like I said, I'm fascinated when the choice is to just make a thing that arguably that budget could have been spent elsewhere. And
Hmm.
I know why, because I'm not a filmmaker currently, but I have know enough friends who are, and I understand all those choices, but it's always fascinating to me when I point out something. Go, did you that scene even necessary to spend that money there?
Yeah,
And
For
yeah,
sometimes it is because that's what we do,
yeah.
right?
for me, I think the difference between practical and CG most of the time in terms of creating a character is like something that's there and that's tangible versus something that like my mind most of the time registers is not there and has kind of a weightlessness
Oh,
to
Mm,
it.
they talk about it in I think it was the commentary or special features on one of the Daimajin films, and it's all
mm,
miniatures.
right.
So what they had to do to what they call, create the atmosphere was they just had to pump a lot more particulates
Mm,
into the air to give you the feel that there was stuff more going on in the tinier version,
yeah,
because we don't notice it until it's missing, right?
right.
So creating that atmosphere by, introducing more dust or more particulate, more
How interesting.
weight in the atmosphere is essential to selling that.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of times it's harder to do if you're not really looking, if you're not looking at the overall feel of things, if you just do it digitally. But
Well,
again, like Jason, like what you pointed out was, if we're going like, oh, CG, blah blah blah, like every show right now has way more than you even think about,
right,
like
right.
all the time.
It's just cost-cutting measures. Let's
Sure.
build a city in the background, and
Yeah.
so that's great. Doesn't that's working really well. Okay,
but
we should wrap up.
different. It is different when it's a character that's in the forefront. Like
Right.
Absolutely.
that's the
Of
Yeah.
course.
thing. Like your brain is going to work so much harder with a special effect that like or something
Well, I
where
would go
you're
not just in the forefront, but when it's something that is magical, when it's something that's outside of our lived experience, we're going to notice it. And if it, Superman flying, if it looks fake, it's okay in some cases and not okay in others, and that's just the way it is.
well
Um,
we could probably spend all night talking about this. So you're right. We
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
probably should just
So
wrap it
I
up.
want to
But
get to our final thoughts because I don't think there's much to be served by walking through a great deal more here. So and to those who listen, I hope that you watch this movie before you listen to this takedown of it because I'm so sorry. I well
why?
I'm
I'm
like,
sorry. Actually,
really?
let me put it the other way. I'm kind of sorry.
People got paid millions of dollars to make this movie. Why are you
I guess you're right.
sorry?
It's a good point. Yeah,
Tom
that's true.
Welling probably bought a house or something. Like
Yeah, and good for him.
yeah,
That's
you look, yeah, get paid. Like I'm not
yeah,
like I don't, maybe I feel bad for like the security guy or the craft services guy, but like as far as like everybody, in front of the camera, I don't feel bad that we with our little podcast
yes. No,
poked some
quite correct.
holes.
And I think all of us have said I have, Tom Welling. I got no problem with his performance. I just, I just it just doesn't feel right for this movie. I thought that Selma Blair is wonderful, but she doesn't seem like the hard living DJ that the character is supposed to be. I mean, I none of this feels quite right to me here. But it's not so bad that I'm just having a deliriously good time with how poor all of the choices are. That's not the case at all.
It's definitely not a so bad it's good. It's
Not
just
not remotely.
it's
It's
so bad
competently
it's
made.
bland.
Yeah, exactly. It is. That's exactly right. It's fine, which is nothing that you want a horror movie to be. So, all right. We started with Drew. So, final thoughts, Drew. If there's anything else.
I'm not sorry that we did this little experiment. I think doing like I wouldn't mind revisiting this thing of doing an original movie and a remake like back. I think that this
Sure.
was fun.
Well, sure. Like
I
13
don't, I
Ghosts
don't
back to back. That could be
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
I don't think that, and as we discussed, there's a lot of remakes to choose from. I don't think that this is a particularly good movie. I don't think I would ever go out of my way to watch it again, but it's not the worst thing I ever seen. So I guess that's the nicest thing I can say about it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much. Julia. I mean, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I mean, just what I said. That's not, the nicest thing I can say about it is that there actually are some great effects. I think there is some really
Mhm.
creepy stuff. There's some really cool atmospheric things. And yeah, if the other movie didn't exist, I think I would have more nice things to say about it. But when you're remaking a movie, it's going to be compared to the original, and there was some choices that we've talked, that you guys talked about a lot with that had to do with money and time, but there's just some things that were just they just decided to do it different, and I don't know why. Like there was so many things like that where you're just like, really? But you didn't need to change that part. But anyway, so I think it was entertaining, and yeah, I think if you're gonna watch one, watch the first one. That's what I would
Right.
say.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. Um, Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I don't think I would revisit this, but and again, if you're gonna if you're gonna remake a Carpenter movie, that's a tough sell. A Carpenter movie with the original cast that the original Fog had is
Yeah.
also you're against that. But I think in general, as like I said before, as I'm watching it, if you want to watch a string of these kind of post Scream movies that have this aesthetic, this fits all of those bits. And if that's your bag, this is totally gonna also be your bag. Baffling choices aside.
Yeah.
But in general, a lot of it bugged me, unfortunately. And I think there's some you could salvage something out of this. I think I thought there were some really good bits, and everybody's trying. I I just don't think it works for me, which is unfortunate because I always want something to be good. Like I never relish in something just like, haha, that's bad. You're terrible people for making this or whatever. Like, I wanted it to be good. I had hopes, but in the end, and again, like we wait up until maybe there were breadcrumbs that I missed, but the hey, I'm secretly this ghost lover over time was definitely not a thing that I saw or even understood exactly why that choice.
No,
I think it
yeah.
changes a lot of how the story is and how it affects it's just so different from the original sins of the town
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I guess you write what you want to write, and that's fine. But yeah, it didn't work for me, unfortunately. That was actually kind of a cool effect. They did a good job on making ghost people in that
Sure.
where they're the people and they superimpose all the ghostly people, live action people stuff was done pretty well. So
I do recall last year we watched Web of the Spider, which was a remake of Castle of Blood. And that was a movie. It was interesting. We did it as a sort of experiment because the guy who Antonio Margheriti made the film in black and white, and then not very many years later, he just remade the film in color. But it was one of those times when they didn't change stuff. He just literally took the same script and shot it again. And it was so close that it was actually difficult sometimes to remember which version you were talking about
right.
when you were thinking about it. That this is an experiment kind of like that, with the opposite effect, which is that lots of changes happen. We're definitely happier with the first one than the second one. But the grade at the end was no need to see this if you've seen the first one. There's just literally no
And
reason that you
and
would
that
have
is
to see it.
hard. Like if you're not adapting some things,
Yeah,
then there's also the chance that you'll go, what was the point of that? Like there was already a thing. Like why is it exactly the same?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it is hard to do that, and you want to bring something new to the table, but
yeah.
it's all of those choices matter when it's kind of really what you latch onto is what's important, I
Have
think.
you ever wondered about like rip-offs? It's almost as though your payoff might be better making a rip-off. To make a rip-off of the Fog that's has a lot of the same beats but is something new than a remake, because people go, oh, it's a rip-off of the Fog, but at least people aren't necessarily comparing you. It's a new thing.
Yeah, but marketers aren't the people in charge of using the IP aren't gonna
No, you're right.
do that.
That's absolutely right. It's like, look, we have the Escape from New York IP. You're going to be on board on this or not, but we're making this movie. I mean,
I would love to see the details. What would fascinate me is the details of how many remakes that are done, perhaps lower budget, perhaps not, but on the budget this size. Let's put it that way. Because I wouldn't say
yeah.
this is low budget, but
No, not by a
it
stretch.
fits
This
right
is
in
not a
the.
low budget movie. No, no.
So, but like this level budget and
Yeah.
maybe lower, how many of those were? If we don't film this now, we lose our rights. The exercise to exercise the rights.
It's a solid question.
And I would be curious on how many of those were very deliberate in that we need a remake because we think this generation of horror fans will like this thing. And then how many were, if we don't make this by X year and get this out, we won't be able to continue making more if we decide to make something else.
That's a really
and I would
good
be
question.
fascinated by that because that happens, a fair amount. I mean, the most famous one probably being the Fantastic Four Corman movie.
Breaking my heart with that one, man. I mean, boy, oh boy, that one. Do you remember how that was like on the cover of like Film Threat magazine and stuff like that? Like the only people who knew that movie was never going to come out were like the tippy top people.
Oh, of course. Yeah, but that's one of the most storied versions of that.
Yes.
But it happens enough that I've seen more than a few that you find out kind of close to the tail end of, close to when it's going to be released. Like, we had to get, studio says, here's some money, go make this thing for us.
Apparently that's what happened with Amazing
do?
Spider-Man, is that they have to get going again every so often, or else they're going to lose those rights, and so they're just going to keep doing it until now. Now they have a new deal that,
but I would be curious. Yeah. As we look at this timeline, as we discussed, how many were contractual remakes? Like, if we don't do this, here's a budget, we think this is good, and it comes out okay, right? Like, not terrible, but that would be fascinating to me. I'm sure it's there's a website somewhere that tracks that, or I could dig it up, but just a spreadsheet
really
of that.
It's a really interesting
kind of
question.
what I'd be looking at.
Yeah. Wow. By the way, Dark Castle, which strikes me as the kind of thing that's probably like one of Drew's favorite companies, but they started out making remakes of William Castle stuff.
I like several of the Dark Castle movies. I think they're fun. I think the remake at House of Haunted Hill, it's not a great movie, but it's fun. I mean, it's a perfect description. Like,
I thought 13 Ghosts was scary. I mean,
13 Ghosts has some
13 Ghosts has some really
creature designs, like and it's so like I do see the difference being is with those remakes they brought some imagination to them, and that's all sometimes I really need. Like this just was like, this is like the shredded wheat of horror remakes. It's just bland. So there you go.
All right. I'm so glad that we talked about this, even if it was difficult sometimes to say nice things about the film. Let's get our endorsements. I'm dying to know what you guys have been reading or want to recommend. I know everybody's been super duper busy, so it can be very difficult, but please do share. Drew, you are first on deck. Do you have anything that you want to recommend?
Well, unfortunately, while we were recording this podcast, I actually learned this through my newsfeed. Ivan Reitman died, and who is the director of Ghostbusters, my all-time favorite film, as anybody who watches this podcast knows. And I feel like that if you are a fan like me, you should go back. You should watch Ghostbusters 2, watch Stripes, hell, watch Evolution. That movie's got some cool creature effects if you're just, in it for the thing. But, the guy was a legend. He had a really long career. I'm glad he held in there long enough to see Afterlife come out, but man, like that's kind of hits me a little hard, because he's like one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing today, and so I feel a little, 75 years old. He wasn't super young, but like I still feel sad about it. So
it is a loss, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks.
Well,
yeah, that's all I got this week. I had
well, no, but it's a good recommendation. It's go check out some Ivan Reitman stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good idea. Julia, do you have anything to recommend?
Well, speaking of remakes, I really loved the original movie Death on the Nile, and we watched the remake of that, the Kenneth Branagh version, and it was really good. It wasn't I still feel like, because I did love that original movie, I feel like it wasn't the original movie, but it wasn't lesser. It just was, I really just like the original movie, but it's a great cast and really interesting performance, really interesting. I guess performance is the word, or production.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, we enjoyed it a lot. I think everybody did a great job. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Fantastic, thank you. And I loved that as well. I mean, we've got those DVDs of the original, the 1970s Hercule Poirot movies, and it's just so neat to see these.
Yeah, I will say, don't watch it for Kenneth Branagh's French accent.
Belgian accent.
Sorry?
Belgian accent. Hercule Poirot.
Yeah, whatever. My point
Belgian.
is, he does not sound like he is a native French speaker. Or what does he? I'm assuming he spoke French though, because there's French.
He sounds
Belgians
a
who
lot
speak
like
French.
Henry V doing
Yeah,
French
there's
accents, but that's
Belgians who
fine.
speak French and Belgians who speak German and other languages. But anyway, but I didn't. Yeah, I thought the accent was not the greatest, but that's okay. He did a great job directing. It's really beautiful. Like the ship that they used. I don't know how much of it is a practical set, and how much of it is just a studio or CG. But the boat is the boat they're on is gorgeous. There's a lot of beauty to it, and the sets are again. It was like what Tony was talking about. Who knows what percentage of this is CG, but it was well done.
Yeah, very good. Tony, what about you?
I've been pretty busy. I mean, today I was trying to get demos for the new Deserts of Mars LP that I hope to start recording. It'll be months and months away due to scheduling and all of that, but I've been mostly busy doing that. Playing some games here and there. Actually, if you're a horror game fan or a horror crossover game fan, actually, I got the remastered Ghosts and Goblins, which is extremely hard and may make you want to throw your Switch across the room. But as a big Ghosts and Goblins was big when I was growing up, and I could actually beat that game, which is no mean feat on the NES. So I've been playing that. Like, that's been really cool. Also, a band I've been a big fan of for years, and actually, the fact that the cover for is band Voivod, the fact that their cover Nothing Face was done on Amiga at the time struck me as like this thing where I go, wait, you can do computers and heavy metal. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say was the main reason why I have the career I have, but it definitely pushed me in that direction and was a very a big deal at the time, 89. But the new Voivod album sounds amazing. It's this really interesting mix of some of their older albums sound with kind of new era sensibilities, and it's called Synchro Anarchy. And I have just been, it's got cool videos. I'm a big fan of their drummer Away's art. Have been, like I said, but I've been listening to that, and that's been really great. And then I also noticed, and I haven't watched it, and I just feel bad that I haven't. Jean-Pierre Junot, who did Amelie and City of Lost Children, Delicatessen, Micmacs, has a new movie, which I hope it's good. I'm fingers crossed, on Netflix called Big Bug, and I love it. if you are a fan of his movies, and there's one that not a lot of people have seen called Micmacs. I don't know if anybody else have you seen it?
No.
Anybody else here? That's also going to be like, he's just great at putting together a cast of misfits and letting them do cast of misfits thing. Micmacs is just great. I really enjoy that movie. So if Big Bug feels like that, I'm gonna be super happy. But we'll see. I've seen I try to not watch or read reviews or even people are saying, so I've seen a couple little mixed tidbits, so we'll see. But I'm a fan of his work, so I'm pretty happy. Although his Aliens, the movie, wasn't my favorite. Unfortunately, I think it looked like the aesthetic is great, but it wasn't my favorite film. But yeah, if you haven't seen Micmacs and you see it around, it's pretty great. I like it a lot. But I'm cautiously optimistic that if this is as good as his other stuff, and I love Amelie, like I could watch that. It's a nice feel good,
absolutely, yeah,
hit you in the heart movie. So I'm hoping this is good. I'm excited to see a new movie.
Excellent, thank you. The only thing that I've been really racing to try to hit a deadline on a book, so the only thing that I've really seen has been Death on the Nile, which I just adored. It had so many great choices, but Julie already talked about that, so I think we're in good shape. Thank you, everybody. And it has been so fun to discuss The Fog. I know that we're going to be off this coming weekend, and then we'll be back whenever we're back, probably the weekend after that, to discuss another Foggy horror, which will be Tower of Evil, also known as Snape Island, or The Evil of Snape Island, or a couple of other titles. So that'll be super fun. Everybody, be kind to one another. Look out for The Fog. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Night.
Night.
Good night.